Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of interviews with entrepreneurs in South Africa. And if you were watching earlier this week, I started an interview with Andries Kluyts, which was sadly cut off due to circumstances beyond our control. So today we are revisiting Andries, and he has us in his studio so we can see the place where he works, which I think is very exciting. So, Andries, you've already introduced yourself to us in the previous episode. Would you like to give us a guided tour of your workshop today?
I can certainly do that. If we walk through the workshop, we probably get a better idea of what there is and what I do. Because since I do a multiple of things, it's always difficult to explain exactly what I do. But what we were discussing last time was specifically on the metalworking side, the more creative side of work, and specifically the type of classes that I do. As far as the class is concerned, that is normally beginners blacksmith courses that I do. That's where I feel comfortable to start introducing people, and that anything more advanced like that, you actually going to have to spend a lot of time with yourself and in a way teach yourself more skills within that. But I mean, that's we sort of touched on most of that in the previous section. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the phone around. I'm on my phone. Sorry if the quality isn't that great.
No, this is wonderful.
Here we go. In the corner here is a metalworking lathe. And then from there on, I can show you one of my fly presses. I find it difficult to see now. Right in front of us here. Nice big fly press here. What a fly press does, it in a way does chisel work for you, but it's in a very controlled fashion. Totally manual tool. This specific machine I've got here is over 100 years old and still works beautifully.
Wow.
Probably one of my favorite tools in the workshop.
Where did you find it?
I'm a scavenger by nature, I guess. So this was at an auction house.
Okay.
But I mean, you do find lucks every now and then. You just have to be out there looking for them
Okay.
and know what you're looking for.
Okay.
Yes, one of the power hammers that I built. Over there is just racks with hammers and things. This over here is a pneumatic power hammer. That is specifically for doing all the heavy hammering work. I know it looks bizarre with the horns on top, but there's a whole story behind why it's got horns.
Was it giving you a hard time one day?
No, it's offcuts from a previous job where a customer was giving me a hard time, and then we realized that he was wrong.
Okay.
That's my gas furnace. I prefer a gas furnace because I can switch on, do the work, shape the metal I want to, and carry on with my job, not have to go through all the traditional steps. I don't see myself as a traditional blacksmith. I do it as an addition to all my other metal work. So the hot working of metal is part of what I do.
Okay.
Here's another example of a pneumatic tool that I built for the sheet metal work that I'm busy with. I'm currently busy doing with a small range of small copper stills, purely for the stovetop type of environment. So yeah, current situations obviously caused a bigger interest in stills. Whether it's for lavender oil, I cannot comment or say for sure what they're going to use it for.
Okay.
But that's not up to me, luckily. Then, yeah, over here is a more general working station, cutting table where I use my plasma cutter to cut out various profiles. Here's my MIG welders, all my grinders and things down there, all my hand tools on hand. The cutting stations are down here. Cutting of steel, cutting of aluminium sections, cutting of wooden profiles. Obviously, I can change the blades in those miter saws for various applications. And then over here, here's an example of the copper still I was talking about.
Wow.
Where I was trying to introduce basically just a small tabletop model, stovetop model. It does exactly what a big unit would do, just on a convenient scale. I did a lot of research and a lot of modifications and R&D on the cooler itself, because the whole crux of this was to get the cooler to work, because my idea is so I can shift this in a bucket this size to a customer, and that he's got something he can store in there. He can use the bucket for whatever other reasons. It's just a very convenient and cost-effective way of actually shipping something like this that is or could get damaged quite easily in transit.
It's
But they work
beautiful.
well. Yeah, I went for a very nostalgic look on it, because it is copper. Face it, there is something. We all remember having to sit there and polish up our grandmother's copperware, thinking that, oh, this is such a nice honor to do this. Meantime, they just tried to keep us quiet, keep us quiet, and kept us out of mischief, I guess.
And it's
But yeah,
funny you talk about that, because I remember my grandmother's copper vases very, very well.
yeah,
So
exactly. Everyone's got that hint of memory, and the moment you start polishing it, there's this familiar smell with the cleaning products and things like that.
yes,
So yes, there is definitely something nostalgic about it. One can obviously go and build something very technical. Originally, I was working on that. Unfortunately, that is one of the things we discussed in the last video. You asked me what it's like for myself and Louise being in the same household, both being artists. In myself, I am an artist, but I'm also more of an engineer. And I think that's, in my opinion, you cannot separate the two. I think some people are just more practically inclined. I guess if you do fine art, what I mean by that is probably two-dimensional art, painting, that type of thing. It's less practically technical, but there's a lot of technical aspects about understanding your paints, understanding your color mixes, how they would interact. So there you could say you need to understand chemistry.
yes,
So yes, art by nature is very technical. My art is more three-dimensional, so hence it will verge or be more towards the engineering side of things as well. Hence, I'm using engineering tools to do creative work with.
yes. Now you have a pretty impressive man cave going there, I have to say. I think
Yes, this is my...
most men who look at that will just go, oh my goodness, this guy is so lucky to have all those tools. Now, somebody who wants to just start out with metal making, who wants to come to one of your courses, what if they don't have all those tools? What would you recommend they start with?
Well, I didn't have any of this. Well, I had some of this. I had basic hand tools 20 years ago.
Okay.
But the more space you have, the more you live into it, the more luck comes around, the more that I believe the right tool will come around when you need it.
Okay.
A lot of jobs, like I've said before, I've had to, okay, I need to do this job. I cannot do it without that tool. You go out, you buy the tool, and you use that job to pay for that tool. That's the other thing. You have to be very careful spending too much money on tools, and then it's a tool that is actually not going to earn its keep.
Yes.
Everything in here is paid for itself. There's one or two tools that I thought this thing is never going to pay for itself, and then a job comes around where you realize, but only what it saved you in time, it paid for itself tenfold. So I love tools as well.
I see you've also got some tools there that when you were showing us around that you said you'd built yourself.
Yeah, because I do specialty work, you cannot always find the tools that you need for this type of work. Here's an example here. Sorry if I'm moving around oddly. This big wheel here is basically, I couldn't afford or justify a hydraulic press. So this big wheel operates a worm screw in the table. I've got no idea if you can see that.
Yes, I can.
And that is basically a horizontal clamp arrangement I made. This one is a modification of a shrinker stretcher machine that you can buy for fairly cheap, but it doesn't give me the capacity I needed. So I had to rebuild the body for this, so I can at least do the work for me that I need to. But again, I love tools, and I like the challenge of having to figure out how to make it work. Even my gas furnace that I use for my hot work of the metal, for the blacksmith side of things, that is something I developed because what was out there wasn't suited for what I needed to do. I built my first one probably about 20 years ago. And I don't know how many variations I built from that. And then I ended up with this specific model. And this specific model is so customized for what the type of work that we do, in the way that it can open the door and access and fuel consumption, all of that, that I've actually stuck to this design. I've built several of these for customers purely because they are that reliable, that durable and versatile. It's just, yeah, you don't have to, you shouldn't, if you've built something, be married to that component. You must be able to say, okay, it worked, but this is the first one, how can we improve it? In saying that, some of my tools here I built as a prototype 15 odd years ago. It looks like a real Neanderthal thing, but it still works perfectly for what I needed to do, so it works. Ergonomically, you can improve it, but that's not always worth spending the time on.
Yes, yes. Wow, it's very impressive. I'm so glad you took us into your workshop today. I'm really pleased that the storm cut us off earlier in the week, because now we get to see the real stuff. This is amazing.
Yeah, if the storm didn't cut us off, I also wouldn't have thought about doing interview in here. I was worried that the Wi-Fi was going to cut out again.
Okay, it's wonderful to see your workshop. So when you teach workshops, how many students do you normally have in a class?
I limit it purely so that one can rather give the individual attention and make people feel comfortable, and obviously very much from a safety aspect. When people come here, I tell them what type of clothing to wear or bring with, meaning cotton, jeans, closed shoes. And then I would provide them with safety glasses, ear protection, aprons, things like that, purely to make sure that they are safe. And I feel 4 or 5 people, I would say 5 is my limit that I feel comfortable with. I've done bigger classes, but it works, but I don't feel comfortable with such, call it crowds if you want to. My space is limited. The turnaround we can do in the furnace is limited. So I'd rather go for quality than quantity. And that's
Absolutely.
most things that I do when I build. I tend to do it that way in any case.
Okay.
Like I said before, rather spend that extra bit of time and do it properly.
And have you ever been badly injured doing your job?
Yeah, you get the occasional burn, obviously, if you do something stupid, but that's why it happens, because you did something stupid.
Okay.
My worst thing was, obviously, years ago, I managed to stuff my back up. But again, that's also from being stupid in hindsight. So, yeah, you learn.
I suppose you have to be quite aware, quite self-aware when you're doing a job like that and working with those big tools.
Yeah, very much. You can only build that amount of safety into equipment because you reach a point where the equipment becomes unusable if you try and build every safety measure in there, or it takes so long to do a job that it's become ridiculous. And unfortunately, the big industry out there is, the prime example of exactly that, where health and safety creates an unsafe environment almost. And
Okay.
I have seen this firsthand overseas even. So, yeah.
That's interesting. And
common sense.
How long are your workshops?
I try and keep it, if I do the workshops, I try and keep it for a weekend workshop, because it's not only a mental overload that you're going to get, it's also physically. You do not have the endurance to be able to strike a hammer the whole day if you're not used to it. Even myself, if I haven't done it for a month or 3, I can feel it. But my body is obviously used to it. Muscle memory takes over and you respond quite quickly to it. I mean, I'm sore the next day or 2, but at least you still get the work done. Where if someone is not used to that, you have to be very aware of that. And especially on the knife making side. The further you progress into making the knife, the more dangerous it becomes, because it's not a piece of metal anymore, it's becoming a knife. And if you then tie it and can't hold it properly, you could injure yourself. So luckily I've learned over the years how to put safety techniques in place so that people won't injure themselves. And I've also adapted the course so that if people want to do that, that they don't need the big belt grinders or polishing machines and things, that they can actually do it with more commonly available tools like grinders and things like that. But what I basically teach on that side is hot working of metal, although you can actually just on the cold working side, you can produce a knife as well. That also gets covered in those courses.
That's awesome. And where do most of your students come from?
All over. I must admit, all over. Again, like I said last time, IT crowd. I've still haven't figured that one out, but yeah, whether it's not only TV programs. I think the gaming industry I can thank for that.
Okay, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. And where do you see your business in 5 years' time?
Hopefully, still up and running under current conditions. No, I must admit, my business always surprised me. I've never tried to try and figure it out too far in advance, purely because it's it takes almost the fun out of it. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about my work and being out in the country, being able to do this type of thing out in the country, is all the surprises that comes with it. Jobs that I would never have thought that would have popped up here in the middle of nowhere, and yet there they are. Yeah, coming from the movie background. Yeah, coming from the movie background, it's more a case of you were used to getting these weird requests of doing something that's totally out of context, but it's still just it's for a movie. You build these things as a mad rush, and then it gets broken and trashed afterwards. And that is one of the things that I sort of didn't like about the industry, because you could have done a bit better, but it doesn't matter. You just want to get it out because that's the deadline is everything. Where for what I'm doing, I want to do the opposite, because I know that by spending that 10% extra, you can get a proper finish. You can get a proper long-lasting product as well.
So what's your favorite job that you've ever done? One that really stands out in your mind?
I can't. There's too many.
Building your own tools in your workshop.
Yeah, I enjoy what I do, so I probably cannot pick a favorite. I must admit, one of the things that I really enjoying over the last couple of years, I've luckily I had the time and the opportunity to start working on cars again. Is one of my passions in life. First one was an old Mercedes that I built up. For the last 2.5 years, I built a Land Rover, but that was it's more hot rod than a Land Rover. So it's just the wrapping is Land Rover. The rest is very much not.
Okay.
So yeah, being able to take something, a more long-term project like that, and see that through, that I must admit that I've been enjoying.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. So I see we're coming near the end of our time. If you would like to make any parting comments and just tell us where we can find you online.
Okay, you can find me at starnationart.co.za. That my email address would be andre@starnationart.co.za. Okay. We've got a website, just starnation.co.za. And then otherwise people can probably phone me, but that information will be on the website.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think people, all I can say is I didn't think that I would make this when we decided years ago to just get out the city, because I either had to go into a direction I didn't want to, or rather not have regrets and try it. And we tried. It worked. Obviously, financially, it didn't. You don't earning what you would be earning in the city, but at least the quality of life, you cannot compare it. So I would recommend to anyone, follow your passion, follow your dreams.
Oh, that's great. Great parting message. Thank you so much for your time today, Andre. That was very inspiring.
Thank you very much.